friends! So today I'm going to show you everything in my makeup collection that I have hit pan on. So first I have my face powders, and then eyebrow products, and then eyeshadows, and then cheek products. So the first three are my face powders. So this is one that I got just passed on to me by somebody who didn't want it. And it's an Estee Lauder translucent pressed powder. It doesn't really have a shade or anything because it's translucent, but the packaging says March Angel Compact Lucidity. So not sure what that means, but this is the pan I have on it. A little bit hard to see, but this powder is really tightly packed in a way that it's not easy to use at all. I usually use it for my under eyes with my Real Techniques brush, so I'll use around the sides since it's the perfect size for the sides of the pan, and I'll just use it to set concealer under my eyes because it's a pretty dry powder. I don't really want to put it on the rest of my face because it would make my face look dry. Then next one, which is also not cruelty free, is a Maybelline Dream Powder in the shade Classic Ivory. I don't even know how long I've had this, which is honestly kind of gross, but I don't want to throw it out. It's also way too dark for me, but it's not a silver pan, it's a plastic pan, and it has a little crosshatch pattern on it, but you can sort of see it's medium-sized amount of pan. It's a really soft powder, the texture feels nice, and it sort of it matches the skin tone of the rest of my body, but my face is more pale than most of my body, so it doesn't really match my face. So I usually just use it in the summer. Sometimes I'll use it in my bronzing area, but not as a bronzer, just because I know if I set my foundation in the areas where I bronze, then it's gonna get covered up with bronzer, so I can sort of use it that way, but most of the time I just don't. So I want it to be on, but I don't really use it, so I don't know when that's gonna happen. And then the last one is my favorite of all my pressed powders, or my favorite of all my translucent powders, I guess. And it's an e.l.f. Color correcting powder. It says in the shade Cool, but I don't think they make another one. So there's the pan right there, and there's only pan in the yellow section of it because I use that section most often for my under eyes. And then the rest of it I usually kind of swirl together. Sometimes I'll use this green section on my cheeks because I tend to get really bright redness on my cheeks. So sometimes I use that today to set my face, and then I used the yellow side, or the yellow corner, on my under eyes, and I used the green side on my cheeks and in the creases underneath my nose because I get redness there too. And then the blue and the pink pretty much just get swirled together to use on the rest of my face. But yeah, that's my favorite of my translucent powders. I don't usually use a powder foundation very often, but I have a couple. And then next are my eyebrow products. I have the NYX Tame and Frame in the shade Blonde. And this one I kind of dug down to hit pan, not intentionally, just the way that I was using it. But you can see the walls of it are still pretty thick. I've been trying to use up the top ring, but you really don't need a lot of it, so it takes a while to use. Not as pigmented as the Anastasia Beverly Hills pomades are, or is. I don't know if there are multiple. But I like it because it's not super pigmented, so if I get too much on my brush, I can blend it out with a spoolie pretty easily, so it doesn't completely ruin the makeup look. Next is this is actually so used and so beaten up that it doesn't have any of the labeling on the front, but this is from the brand Pixi. It's a brow powder palette and it's called Shades of Brows. So you can see the top one I've actually depotted because it's basically the shade of my skin tone, so I can't put it in my brows, it's not going to do anything, and since it matches my skin tone, it doesn't do anything to highlight my brow bone, so I tried that, but it didn't really do anything. So I depotted that and put it in my Z palette, which I'll show in a little bit, just to use as like a setting shade for my eyeshadow. But this one I'm kind of working on finishing up. I don't use it every day, but this is the way of doing my eyebrows that I prefer. So I used this shade on like the first section, like the middle section of my eyebrows, and then I used the darker shade for the tail, which is why this one has more use on it. But I really like this. I don't think I can purchase it anymore because I don't think Pixi makes makeup products anymore. I think it's just skincare now. But I would definitely use like eyeshadows as a brow powder in the future, just because I have so many like neutral browns. I don't really need to purchase a brow powder, but it is my favorite method of doing my brows. And then my two cream eyeshadows that I have pan in are the Maybelline Color Tattoo Metal in the shade Inked in Pink, and I really like this, but it is by Maybelline, so it's not cruelty free, so I wouldn't repurchase it just because of that, but I do like the quality of it. You can see the pan sort of in the middle. It's a really pretty shade. I usually use this as a base, and then I put powder eyeshadows on top of it. And it does last really well. The only thing is I have to make sure I don't put on too thick of a layer, or it looks really chunky when I put the powder eyeshadow on. And then the other one is a ColourPop Super Shock Shadow in the shade Twitter Pated. I liked this eyeshadow partially because Kathleen Lights recommended it. I really love her channel. But it's also really just a gorgeous shade. There's the pan. It's really tiny. This was a pan that I hit on accident, so I guess that tells you how much I like it. But it's this really gorgeous metallic pink that sort of shows up as a duochrome because there's gold glitter in it. I guess you can't see that as well on camera, but you can sort of see the reflex of the gold glitter in the pan, and it just ends up looking really gorgeous. It works really well, like if you put it on by itself, like on top of a primer, or I can put it on top of a powder shadow. I can put this on and then put a powder shadow on top of it, or I can also put this on top of like a glitter glue to make sure that the glitter stays on my lids, because otherwise it can not necessarily fall out, but once the shadow dries, if like I don't know, I guess if it's like a windy day or if I like touch my eyes too much, then the glitter can come off. So sometimes I'll wear it on top of a glitter primer, but not always. And then this whole stack is eyeshadows. So the first one in here is actually one that I hit pan on and then proceeded to use up. It's the second shade in right there. These don't have names, but that one was sort of a light pink, so I used that to set my eyeshadow primer for a while, and I love the formula of these eyeshadows. I don't know if I said, but it's the e.l.f. Mad for Matte palette. So right now this is the only one that I can use to set my primer, but I don't do that as often anymore. And then the rest of these are just really beautiful like crease shades for the most part. I don't usually use mattes on my lid, but I really like the formula of these because they blend out really well. They can be applied in a pretty sheer way if you don't get too much product on the brush, or you can like really build them up if you want to. So I would highly recommend this palette. I think it's like $6, so it's a good one. And then Next I have two Tarte Holiday palettes. This actually came in a set of 3 in 2015. I know it's really old. But I depotted the silver ones at one point this year. I think I was procrastinating and I was trying to find anything I could do other than my calc homework. So I depotted a palette and I regret it. Would not recommend doing that, but that one is in my Z palette now. So this is the rose gold one, and these have shades, shade names. I really like the names of these shades. So I have Pan in Joy to the Pearl, which is that top one, and then Rose Golden Rings, and Rose Such a Clatter down there. I don't really like the formula of these shadows. They're really dry, and a lot of the metallics are just like so dry that you have to build them up like 4 times to get them to show up as pigmented as I want them on the eyelids. But as far as the colors go, I do really like them. I can make a really nice look out of these palettes like individually, or I can combine shades from each palette. And this is the gold palette. I only have Pan on Toasted Marshmallow in this one, which I just used to set my eye primer for a while. I like the shades in this palette better. I think the metallics are better in this palette, but they're still not great. I want to pan both of those at some point. I tried to, and then I got tired of them, so we'll see. I don't know. And then the next is one that I'm very proud of. It is my Too Faced Chocolate Bar palette. I wanted to hit pan in at least one shade in this palette for the longest time, and then I finally did, and then I realized I was kind of tired of it, so I don't use it as much as I did when I was trying to hit pan, but I still do want to use it more and hit pan on more of it. But here is the palette. I have Pan on Creme Brulee and Marzipan. So those are my 2 favorite lid shades, and I really love all the shades in this palette except for Gilded Ganache. Big surprise, nobody really likes that shade. And then Candied Violet, I like the shade, but it's harder to use. It's just like sort of dry and crumbly, so I usually use it with like a glitter primer, just because there is so much glitter in it. But Marzipan and Creme Brulee I really love. The formula for Creme Brulee kind of sucks. It is pretty dry, but when I put it on top of like a gold cream eyeshadow, then it works pretty well. Next, another one I'm very proud of, I love this palette, is the Master Palette by Mario from Anastasia Beverly Hills. This palette I cherish because my parents bought it for me because I think it was because I got a good grade on a test or something, and I asked them, because it was like some class that I was so sick of, like my junior year of high school I think, and I was like, Mom and Dad, there's this eyeshadow palette that I really want, and if I can like get an A on this test or this assignment, whatever it was, then can I have the palette? And I'm pretty sure they would have bought it for me anyway because that's just how they are, but I think I ended up getting like an A on whatever the assignment was, and so then this palette was like my reward, and I was so excited when it came in the mail. So this palette has a lot of love on it. You can see I have pan in half the shades. This is another palette. I tried to pan this, I think it was 2018 maybe? Yeah, I think 2018 I called this my Pan That palette for like 4 months, and then I was like, I don't want to use this all year. So, I'll just put that back. So I have pan in Hollywood, Kim, Muse, Primavera. That, I lied, that's not Primavera, that's the Modern Renaissance. Marina, and then Fifth Ave and Bronx. So up close you can see the pans better. I absolutely love the formulas of these eyeshadows. It's the only Anastasia eyeshadows that I have. Fifth Ave, as you can see, is my favorite. I'm not really panning it, but I've been loving it so much recently that it's about to be gone. Marina I also really love for the lid. You can tell golds and rose gold / metallic pinks are like my favorite thing for the lid. And then Muse is a really great shade for autumn, that one right there. And then I love pairing it with this one, that's NYC, which I feel like I should have hit pan on by now, but it barely even has a dip. But I love that shade. It's great for the crease. But yeah, I'll probably keep hitting pan on that palette. I really want to hit pan on more shades in it, but I'm gonna stop rambling about it. Okay, next is my Z palette. So first is the Silver Holiday palette from Tarte that I mentioned earlier. I have pan in this shade, which I forget what it's called because the name's not on here, but it's alright. I mean, I just used it to set my eyeshadow primer. The rest of that palette is also kind of sucky. The mattes are fine, but the metallics, again, are just so dry that it's hard to make them look good on the lid. And then this gold shade is from the Wet n Wild I'm Getting Sunburned palette. I didn't finish the pink shade, but I like crushed it up and turned it into something else, which I don't have anymore because it was terrible. And then this is the other shade that was in that palette, and I just depotted them. But that gold has a little bit of pan. That was from a project I did like a couple years ago. It's a good shade, it's just that there's so much of it, it's overwhelming to try to use up the whole shade. So I pretty much just hit pan and then like ran away from it. But then this one is from the Comfort Zone palette before they like reformulated. Ooh, I forgot that these aren't all magnetic. We'll fix that later. So I mean, I don't know, they don't have shade names, but it's the left side brow bone shade, I think. No, I'm not sure. I reorganized them in a way that made more sense to me, but I know I know that this shade was on the top left in the original palette, but it has a decent sized pan. It works well as like an inner corner highlight, but again, it's just such an intimidating size of an eyeshadow pan for an inner corner highlight that I feel like I'm never going to use it up. So I like the shade, but I don't know if I'll ever finish it. Okay, and then the last stack of products is face products, or cheek products, I mean. So the first one is the Balm How About Them Apples palette. This is a cream cheek and lip palette. I've hit pan on one shade, Cobbler. It's a really tiny pan, but you can see it there in the top. And I really enjoy this shade, but my cheeks are naturally really red, so I can pretty much only use like a tiny bit, or I can use it on my lips. So that's how I hit pan on it. It was in a project. I really prefer the shade Caramel and Cider, so I use those more often. I'll probably hit pan on one of them soon, but I pretty much only use cream blush when I don't have foundation on, which is actually more often. We're just gonna cut that part out. And then next is my Too Faced Cocoa Contour palette, also the original one. They like repackaged and reformulated this palette, but this is the original one that they sold. This one also has a memory attached to it because my grandma bought it for my 16th birthday, well, for me to wear at my 16th birthday party. So it's a very special one. But in this palette, I don't have any like pan with product in it, but I have completely used up the matte highlight shade. I used that under my eyes for probably 2 straight years. I don't wear like a full face of makeup that often, but whenever I wore a full face of makeup, I would use that shade under my eyes to set my concealer usually, and I loved it. The texture was really nice, and then I just ended up finishing it up in a project. Next one is my e.l.f. shimmer palette. It says it's in the shade Sheer Sunrise, so these don't really have actual shade names, but I've hit pan on this white toned one. Oh, that brush is on the floor now. I've hit pan on the white toned one. And then, second to last one is in my e.l.f. blush palette, in the shade Light. And in this palette, I don't actually have pan on a blush, I have pan on the bronzer. But this bronzer is actually pretty orange on me, but I keep using it because I just want to keep seeing the pan expand. So I used it on my face today, and it's really thin on this side, on this like inner edge. So I'm hoping to hit side pan on it soon, but I'm not really panning it. I just use it when I feel like it. The product itself is pretty nice. The shade is a little bit orange for my skin, but I usually just try to apply it lightly, and it works fine. And then the last thing is something I hit pan on this morning, so I was very excited. It kind of inspired me to make this video, but this is my Benefit Dandelion blush. It has the tiniest little pan in the middle. You can really only see it like shimmering. But I'm super excited about this. This is the first blush the first powder blush I've ever hit pan on. And I've been trying to pan this for so long. I don't really want it to be gone because I got it on a trip to Europe. I got it like on a boat on our way to Paris, I think, or on our way to France, not Paris. But I don't really want it to be gone, but I do want to use it up because it's from Benefit, which is not cruelty free, and I'm trying to make my collection 100% cruelty free. So I'm excited that I hit pan on it, but I also don't really want it to be gone because this is one of the few blushes that like works really well for my skin tone, because like it almost, like, it's right here, but you can barely see it, which is what I usually want out of a blush. But I mean, I'm probably going to try to use it up soon just because I don't want anything promoting animal cruelty in my, or animal testing in my collection. But that's everything I've hit pan on. I'm hoping to post like once a week if I can throughout the summer, and then we'll kind of see how it goes once I get back into the school year. But like I said, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully you'll stay tuned for more videos. I'm hoping to post more about beauty, and then also sustainability and mental health. Those are like my 3 favorite things to talk about. So if you're interested in like information on that, then I would love for you to stick around and watch some more videos. Thank you. Bye-bye.